Thank you.
Rauhui Kātani.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I want to start with the notion of police and propriety within the context of the rule of law. Clause 5 of this very brief bill deals with the temporary continuation of lawfulness of certain uses of video camera surveillance. I'm fascinated with the use of legislation to create lawfulness for agencies which are charged with implementing and monitoring the law in the first place. The starting place for all criminal law is to protect the rights of an individual against the state, lest the individual become oppressed. That is why one does not allow Parliament to take away a person's rights lightly, which is why there are real restrictions on the police in the way of search warrants. With this new bill, we now have in front of us provisions that the use of covert video camera surveillance as part of or in connection with a search does not of itself render the search unlawful. And I want to refer to an article by Dean Knight entitled Elephants and the Law, which tells us that while the Supreme Court did not rule they acted with bad faith, the majority indicated that the police's attitude to the unlawfulness of the cover surveillance was at best reckless and perhaps deliberate. And I want to read from the actual ruling of the Chief Justice in paragraph 73 of the Urewera case, the Queen and Hammond. I quote, "In circumstances where the police officer in charge of the inquiry knew that there was no authority to be obtained for such filmed surveillance, the deliberate unlawfulness of the police conduct in the covert filming maintained over many entries and over a period of some 10 months is destructive of an effective and credible system of justice." Justice Blanchard went even further in describing this deliberate unlawfulness, the detail around the activities which serve to destroy the credibility and effectiveness of the system of justice. Quote, "Despite being aware that they lacked statutory authority for the surveillance, they proceeded without taking legal advice, which they had plenty of time to obtain. Having failed to get advice, the police cannot rely on the fact that they were operating in circumstances of legal uncertainty and argue that they should be cut some slack. Their conduct was reckless in the sense that they took the risk that it might be found to be unlawful." Unquote. Mr Chair, no one can read through these words, failing to get advice, reckless risk, deliberate unlawfulness, without a sense of horror that what we're talking about are not criminals, they are not those that society should fear. These are the very agents of the state who are meant to uphold the rule of law. And I cannot ignore the findings of a PricewaterhouseCoopers report released in February last year, which found that the police had made little progress in implementing Dame Margaret Baisley's findings. PricewaterhouseCoopers referred to the in-house engagement survey, which confirmed that 67% of police employees are ambivalent about their job and 16% completely disengaged. Mr Chair, I don't know exactly...
Order. I just remind the member you must be more succinct. While you can refer to the case, you must keep it within the confines of what this bill is. Ask the member to come back. Rauhui Kātani.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What I'm pointing out is that this bill is making lawful what was unlawful. And we cannot have that. We cannot be allowing something that was unlawful. We cannot have Parliament then make that lawful, because where is our constitutional right standing? You know, I don't know. I go back to what the police were doing, ambivalent and disengaged. The Māori Party does not want people with that sort of attitude having prospective surveillance powers, let alone police officers who promote one another, who cover for one another, and who allow sexual predators to prosper. This Parliament cannot let the New Zealand Police continue the way it is. The Māori Party, for one, is prepared to do something about it. We have made...
I'll just remind the member, I've just mentioned before, it must come back. This is a very narrow scope of this bill, and while you can refer to the case, remembering that it's still before the courts, we must be very careful that we just stay within the scope of what this bill's about. Rauhui Kātini, you've got, you've got about 5 seconds left.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I make the point that this bill should not be making that lawful which was unlawful. The police should be acting lawfully.
Ko Honi Hawawera.